Good afternoon. The Dow is falling triple digits after National Economic Council Director Larry Kudlow expressed concerns over U.S.-China trade talks earlier. Let's watch.
The president has indicated that he's optimistic with respect to a potential China trade deal. But, we've got a pretty sizable distance to go here. To quote a colleague of mine, we have miles to go before we sleep.
For more reaction on that, I want to speak with Yahoo Finance's Kristin, along with Chamber of Digital Commerce founder and president Perianne. Kristin, I want to start with you. We've known about this March 1st deadline, but increasingly seeing little kernels along the way that we might not get a deal done by then.
I mean, to be honest, I was always skeptical that we would ever get a deal done before March 2nd, and I think that this is just even further bad news for that deal because there's a lot of thorny issues and a lot of sticking points between the two countries, and they were saying that, some of the lower-ranking officials are kind of working through some of the nitty-gritty before the president would be meeting with his Chinese counterpart. But now that they're not meeting, I'm wondering how they're going to bridge the gap between those issues ahead of that March 2nd deadline. So I wonder if this means that they might push that back a little bit further in terms of increasing those tariffs and do a delay like they had done a couple months ago after they met in Argentina. But it's really not good news for the two on those trade talks.
And that was kind of the concerns, right? Because when we had been discussing the trade talks, it was that increase in tariffs that I think the market was mostly concerned about, what could happen there. But as we've seen, I mean, President Trump has said that he didn't want to take those off the table in terms of trying to get a deal done. But of course, he can do what he wants, theoretically.
Well, you have to remember we just came off of a government shutdown for 35 days. So a lot of the staff at the NEC has not been able to work on a lot of these issues. So there's a lot of things that are backlogged and stalled in terms of work at the White House and within the government in general. Yeah,
absolutely. And I think, when you mentioned it during the State of the Union address, that he would also be meeting with North Korea. Right. About things there at the end of February. It was 2 days before the trade deadline. You're trying to pack a lot in, obviously, before a self-imposed deadline.
Right. No, absolutely. I mean, who knows, right? If you'll actually go and see Kim Jong-un now because of that. But no, again, I don't know how we're going to get to a deal without raising those tariffs if those two don't meet, or if they don't at all really work through, or if we don't hear a lot of progress. We haven't heard a lot of news on the progress in those talks. If they cannot bridge some of those gaps, I really think we're either going to see an increase in those tariffs, or they really are going to have to delay that.
But I guess that's kind of, one of the things that we've seen ever since, as you mentioned back in November when we were talking about the G20 talks and how we had an extension in terms of where these trade talks were going. Obviously, we've seen President Trump swayed by his advisors in terms of whether he should be a trade hawk or be a little bit more lenient in terms of maybe just trying to get pieces of the trade deal done and not really taking a hard line on, forced technology transfers or IP theft, all these issues that the U.S. has brought up in terms of trade with China before.
I think the U.S. has really packed a lot of tools in their weapons, rather, in their arsenal in terms of pushing China on some of the issues that they want in order to make a deal. We've seen a lot of the investigations around Huawei. I mean, there's a lot there that the U.S. I think can have to move that needle a little bit. But again, when it comes to President Trump, no one can claim to be Nostradamus. You have no idea what the man is going to do. One minute you think that he's going to really try to work hard at the negotiating table, and another minute he's going to be taking that hard line. So I think it's one of those, I hate saying that wait and see, but it really seems like we're just going to have to wait and see.
Tactic is he's unpredictable.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And if he has been one thing, I think unpredictable is one way to sum it.